Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic? Let's do it. What's the most creepy experience that's ever happened to you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. When I was 13, I had a boyfriend who lived across the city. He was going to bus home when it was dark out, and I really wanted to walk him to the bus stop. My mom told me absolutely not, because I'd be walking back alone. We finally agreed that after he got on the bus, I would call her and we would talk all the way back. Well, about 10 houses away from home, someone literally came out of the bushes and started following me. And thank God at that moment my mom asked how far away I was. I told her I was close enough that if I screamed, she would be able to run to me fast enough to help me. Well, this man did a 180 and ran the other way. I love my mom so much for helping me be safe that night. There was this guy who would go around making multiple accounts DMing people absolute gibberish, like a ton of random cryptic DMs and then comments. It was like he was on something and believed he was friends with strangers on the internet. It happened to my friend, a bit more severely because he had a guy come drop off a large hoodie at my friend's workplace. They've never interacted before. He'd also leave so many voice notes for a bunch of us that were so long. I remember I got one where he was just talking random stuff and was peeing at the same time. I wish I could unhear it. Anyways, we notified the police, especially my friend's case, and they were able to give him a warning. Not sure if he's active, but anytime I see accounts with weird usernames, I remove him right away. I got stalked and followed by the Armed Incident Response Unit in my country. I live on a small island in the Caribbean, and our police are known for being inept and corrupt. Thankfully, the standard patrolman or detective does not carry a weapon here. Instead, we have Firearm Response Units, FRU, that drive routes around the island and are on call as backup for incidents involving firearms. My folks own a set of apartments a few miles up the road. As they have gotten older, I've stepped in to handle things on site. So, if say a burner is out on the stove, I get the call to go out and have a look. Well, one night while I was visiting them, we got a call that the fridge in one of the units wasn't closing properly. So, I figure I would just head out and have a look, rather than waiting until morning. My girlfriend had my truck that night, so I asked my dad if I could jump in his and go have a look. No problem. He chucks me the keys and I head out. It's late. My dad's truck has a great sound system, and his was pretty cool out, so I figured I would jam on the drive with the windows down. Not super loud or anything, but I'm sure you could hear it if you were outside next to the truck. Shortly down the road, I see the FRU vehicle pull in behind me. It's a single carriageway with a bit of traffic coming the other way, so he's just behind me. I set the cruise control to just under the speed limit and leave it alone. Don't need to get done for speeding. As we get to where the road pens and opens up and becomes 4 lanes, we end up behind another vehicle going well under the speed limit. I hit my indicator and checked my mirrors. Good thing too, because the FRU wasted no time in shooting out around me and passing me and the slow car in front. I change lanes and continue on only for the FRU to slow back down almost at the same speed as the slow vehicle we just passed. Okay, what the... I indicate, change lanes, and go around him. I get in front just as we come up to the roundabout. I wasn't trying to cut him off or anything. I just needed to be in the inside lane for my exit. We get off the road, about back onto a multiple, and again the FRU is on my ass, like dangerously close. Almost like he's trying to push me into breaking the speed limit or something. I just set my cruise control and continue on, periodically checking my mirror and confirming, yep, he's still on my ass. I figure, well, He's probably running my plate to see if the truck is licensed, insured, or if I have any warrants. I know all are clean, of course. I had helped my dad renew his licensing and insurance a few days prior, and neither he nor I have had so much as a speeding ticket in the last 10 years. We continue like this for about 20 minutes, him almost touching my bumper, and me waiting for his lights to come on and pull me over or something. We finally arrive at the complex, and I think, now I can get this creep off my ass. I put on my indicator a good bit before, since I didn't want him rear-ending me, and he backs off a bit. As I stop to make the turn, I see his indicator also come on. Now I'm starting to get worried. I know our cops, and I know this could be the start of something bad. I quickly place a call to my girlfriend and tell her to stay on the line, but don't say anything. I pull into the complex, and sure enough, he follows me in. I slow right down and make a show of adjusting my mirror so he knows I see him. I creep through the lot, expecting him to hit his lights any second, but he doesn't. I get to the parking spot and slowly back in, letting him see me through the window and see that I know he's there. As I put it in park, he slowly rolls forward with his driver's side door down and comes to a stop in front of me, blocking me into the spot. I remove my seatbelt and go to step out. It's time to ask what the f*** is going on and if he wants something from me, but as my door swings open and my feet hit the step, he starts moving again. He drives off and around the corner into the complex, out of sight. My girlfriend is still on the phone. I quickly give her the unknown rundown and say, "Stay on the phone. I'm going to wait outside the truck to see what happened." About 2 minutes later, he comes flying out from the back of the complex, past me and out of the gate. I don't know what he wanted. If he was just trying to intimidate me, if he was looking for something to arrest me for, or whatever. But knowing the man in that vehicle was well armed, and I could do nothing about really, put me in a bad headspace. Honestly, the more I interact with cops, the more I dislike them. When I was about 6 years old, I was playing in the front yard. A man in a van pulled up to the fence and called me over. I walked a bit closer, still out of reach, and he asked me if I'd seen his lost puppy. He didn't give details about it, just puppy. I said no, and he asked if he could show me a picture of it. I started to walk closer when my mom let out a blood-curdling screech of my name from the kitchen window. I ran back to the house, honestly more scared of my mom's reaction than the man. I still wonder what would have happened to me if she hadn't glanced out the window. A few months ago, my mom and I were walking back to her car after shopping. It was mid-afternoon, sun still out and everything. I noticed a guy staring at me and kept him in view as we walked. He started following us through the parking lot. We got our car, and I stood at the door, turned around, and stared him down. He was by the boot of the car at this point. He instantly turned around and walked away. I was shaken and very full of adrenaline for the car ride home. Moms have that magical instinctual timing. So, if you still have one or know one, give her a hug. Moms are awesome. At the grocery store with my stepdaughter and my wife, got an odd feeling, and I've always said follow your instinct because it keeps the smallest and dumbest of animals alive. Sure enough, I noticed this older guy, heavyset with a really matted beard, and I realize he's been in every aisle we've been in but hasn't picked up anything. I wait until we get to the next aisle and realize he's really eyeing my 7-year-old stepdaughter down. I immediately confront him and ask what his problem is. He kind of brushed me off and walked away. When we get to the cashier, I tell them to call security and point the guy out. Guy proceeds to rush out of the store, hop in this busted-ass van, and peel out of the parking lot. I'm convinced he's either kidnapped a child before or was seriously considering it that day. Still gives me chills and is a big reason why I decided to start carrying a gun. Make sure you talk to your kids often about being aware of their surroundings and, in an age-appropriate way, explain to them the dangers of society. People are sick. When I was younger, my best friend was going to celebrate his birthday at a museum about 30 minutes away in the nearest big city. So 5 of us young elementary scholars were in a van and his mom was driving. On the way there, the main highway exit we were supposed to take was closed, so we got detoured into a very sketchy neighborhood. Like, all the windows were boarded up and there weren't any people around, and it had a very old and dirty look. We drove past this one house that was unique just because it was the only one that didn't seem to have boards on the windows, and it had a weird-looking dark red door. But the creepiest thing was that someone had left a life-size doll just sitting in the window, creepily looking out on the street. Something about it so unnerving. It gave off super creepy vibes, and even my friend's mom was visibly uncomfortable looking at it. About a decade later, I remember it and looked it up, and apparently it's a well-known house for allegedly being haunted, and they demolish it a few years ago and built a hotel there that burned down over the pandemic. I moved to San Francisco in my early 20s for work. My best friend came to visit me one weekend, so I took her around town to show her the sights. I told her the way to stay safe was to stay alert and don't indicate to anyone that you're visiting or not a local. She followed the rules to a T. We decided to check one of my favorite taquerias at the edge of the Tenderloin, fairly close to Civic Plaza. As we were headed back to the BART station, this large, wild-eyed man came out of the bars across the street while clearly drunk, screamed expletives in our direction. He locked onto us with black, glassy eyes and started running our way. A passerby stepped in to block us from him, and we quickly darted across the street as traffic was standing to parse through. He was foaming at the mouth, and he reached the edge of the street and he yelled at the top of his lungs, "Stay out of my town, you Idaho whores. I will find you and kill you." I turn back to make sure he's not following us, and he's just standing there with this evil smile on his face, still locked onto us. We were incredibly stunned and didn't have any words for what had just happened. Sure, it was scary that this completely strange man just threatened our lives, but the frickin' part was something else. My friend and I met in college in Pennsylvania, but we became friends because we bonded over the fact that we were both born in Idaho. Creeps me out to this day. Not seen per se, but I was working on a KC-135 while deployed. For those that aren't familiar, it's a big tanker refueler aircraft made in the late 50s and 60s. They were used extensively in Vietnam. So, it's about 11 at night, and I get dropped off solo to swap a part out. I'm doing some work way in the back, and I hear somebody climb up the crew entry ladder, open and close the floor gate, then begin walking after towards where I'm working. I don't think much of it. It's a big base, lots of workers, lots of airplanes. I finish up my job, climb out of the boom pod, a sort of bulbous attachment that sits beneath floor level in the back of the plane, and begin walking forward. I don't see anyone up front. Check the bathroom, nobody there or in the cockpit. It's hot as balls on this plane, right? Still had set, but it was still radiating some serious heat. maybe 95 Fahrenheit up there, and I get a chill down my spine. Weird, I think to myself, but climb down and make sure I still have all my tools and whatnot, then wait for my ride. Ride shows up, and I ask them, "Hey, was anybody else supposed to be working this jet? No, why?" Heard someone come up the ladder, close the gate, then walk around, but they never climbed back down and nobody was up there to where I left. What tail number is this? I tell him, "Oh, yeah, this is one of the body haulers in Vietnam." So yeah, pretty sure I walked through a ghost, was a little wigged out, and for the next couple of weeks, Amy time I had to work a jet solo. When I was in driver's education, I made 2 friends. We were the oldest kids in there. They were 18 and I was on the tail end of 17. Everyone around us was 15 or 16. The 3 of us hung out in the back of the class and talked about music, Yu-Gi-Oh! And anime. We even planned a trip to Ozfest that year. We always took our drive times together. It would be 2 of us and an instructor each time. We were in the evening class, so sometimes these drive times were after dark. I ended up dating one of the guys for a few months during an after class. One day, my boyfriend calls me and says, "I don't care where you are or what you're doing. Turn on the news or grab someone's phone right now." For first thing on the news was our friend's face plastered everywhere. He was in a shootout with police and badly injured in the mugshots. They were chasing him because he had murdered and dismembered a young girl from his neighborhood. He threw the parts in a trash bag in a dumpster near his house. The chills I felt when I saw his mugshot, the creepiest feeling I've ever had to this day. I ended up alone with him in the class car one night. The instructor left us because he forgot a clipboard. I always wonder if he thought about it that night. So a while ago, I was living alone in an apartment. One late night I was really high, and I had all the lights off in the place because I was headed to bed. For some reason, on my way to my room, I stopped in front of the bathroom and looked at the dim silhouette of my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I just stayed there for about 10 seconds, staring at this vague, dark reflection of myself, and was still so that the reflection wasn't moving at all. I started to think that the reflection is going to move on its own and get creeped out by the idea. But after a few more seconds, I laughed the idea off and finally moved my arm. And I swear the reflection in the mirror didn't move an inch. I practically ran the rest of the way to my room and hopped under the covers, LOL. Now I was really high, but I think I saw what I saw. And it still creeps me out to think about. Leaving my buddy's apartment in West Philly at 3 a.m. after a long night of drinking. This huge black dude had to be at least 6'6", wearing a skirt and heels, starts catcalling me. He followed me for 2 blocks, telling me the most heinous sexual shit he was going to do to me. Never thought as a guy I would find myself in a situation like that. A Philly PD patrol car rounded the corner, flagged them down, and told them what was happening. They posted up so I could make it to my apartment, that way another 3 blocks away.